If you love, let these be your desires, to melt and sing melodies into the night, to know the pain of too much tenderness, to be wounded by your own understanding of love, and to bleed willingly and joyfully, to rest at noon and meditate within a lover's ecstasy. Ah, love, that intoxicating, slippery little poison. It drives kings to ruin, mages to madness, and yes, even someone as dazzling and discerning as myself to complicated decisions. But not all love is blind. Some love, like mine for Grazist, is sharp, prismatic, a hunger carved from shadow and charm, a craving for beauty wrapped in power, stitched together by lies and cleverness. And oh, how well I know the taste of craving. Which brings us to her, Sonayon, a succubus with lips like a secret and eyes that could command kingdoms with a single whisper. We've crossed paths, naturally. One does, when one moves in elite circles of temptation and apocalypses. But she was never a rival. No, darling, rivals are peers. She was a mirror, one slightly smudged by too much melodrama, but a reflection nonetheless. Let me tell you how she ruined a kingdom. In the year of the Dowager Lady, 726 DR, the trees of the Rawlinswood did something odd. They started whispering, the kind of whispering that turns men on watch into murderers and makes nobles forget their duty in favor of silk and perfumes. That was the prelude, and the overture came in the form of an army. The scaled horde, demons, mostly succubi and glabrezu, who are only tolerable if you like claws and self-loathing, led by a bailer named Andulu, hideous, brutish, fond of long speeches and short tempers. They spilled from the forest of Lether like venom from a festering wound and swept into Impiltur, tearing the Durlevan dynasty out by its roots. And at the heart of it all, Sonayon. While Ndulu was setting cities aflame, she took a different route. Silk, shadows, and seductive whispers. She wormed her way into the court, seduced King Agrosh, and crowned herself the Queen of Whispers. Delightful little title, if a bit derivative. I believe she even tried to have a crown made from actual stolen secrets. Charming, overwrought, but typical for her. But desire never sits still, does it? When Agrosh was slain by some dour paladin with far too much self-restraint, Sonilon vanished into mist. I hear she screamed beautifully. But she wasn't done. Oh no. Desire, as I've said, is a hunger that doesn't fade. It evolves, a cry of ecstasy. For the next 50 years, yes, 50, Andulu and his dear Queen of Whispers rebuilt their little empire of skin and spell. Succubi seduced generals. Glabrezu whispered promises to mages. And Sonayon, well, she was very busy. It all came to a head again in 786 DR, the year of the Moaning Gorge. You really must admire Faerun's commitment to dramatic calendar names. She disguised herself as the mistress of Prince Nord, a handsome, loyal, and downright boring fellow, and nearly turned him. But unlike most men, he resisted. Tragic, predictable, noble. Ugh, and she was captured. Caged like the lovely viper she was. I almost feel sorry for the prince. Ndulu didn't take it well. He unleashed his horde once more, but this time they faced the grandsons of King Sarshal, the paladin princes, gods blessed and insufferably radiant. With a single spell, they opened a vortex and flushed the scaled horde back into the abyss, like wine down a noble's throat. Efficient, if unsubtle. But Sonayon, she slipped away yet again. Because you cannot imprison desire. You can banish it, bleed it, bury it, but it seeps through cracks nonetheless. She continued her work in shadow, sowing ruin in Impiltur, stirring unrest in Chondath, letting her kisses bloom into civil war, and her whispers plant treason. Well, I haven't spoken to her in some time. The last time we did, It was over a game of masks in a ruined ballroom beneath Waterdeep. She wore something silver, and her voice was all sugar. She asked me if I ever regretted anything. I laughed, told her no, but later I wondered. Not because I meant it, of course, but because she knew I might have. And that's how she works. So yes, desire is a poison. But what a flavor it is, darling. Grazest, my love, if you're reading this, no, I'm not jealous. But if you ever call her queen in my presence, I will destroy or enslave an entire layer of the abyss to prove a point. Before I tell you of the creation of the succubi, their dominion, of the courtships turned into conquests, and the whispers that destroyed kings, I give you this: a dream turned into a scripture, a poem penned in the hour when dreams melted into longing and longing became something sharper. 'Twas in a secret dream when rose your name, a wanton wish to wet red trembling lips. That single glimpse engulfed a heart in flame and sent a lonely queen between the hips. The setting sun can never match your gaze. Your voice brings songbirds down in swift disgrace, and never shall a work of paint or clays bring justice to the beauty of your face. And now the world is filled with ashen lust, temptations that to you cannot compare. What this world holds is little more than dust. A life without your love I do forswear, and so I slip my gentle blade inside, and with the flow of blood become your bride. Not long after the ancient Oberith demons were scattered and the Queen of Chaos was defeated on the fields of Pesh, the abyss lay depopulated. Eladrin armies swept through its infinite layers in a furious crusade to crush and destroy everything they could find in the wake of that momentous defeat, and as a result, the Oberith race was nearly obliterated. Yet, even such a colossal loss could do little but register as a stutter in the vile fecundity of the abyss. The Oberiths had been removed from power, but their Tanari creations, demons fatted upon the sins and souls of mortal life, were ready to claim the abyss as their home. The Tanari domination of the plane was swift, occurring in the blink of a cosmic eye. Unlike the Oberiths, who crawled wet and ruinous from the heaving birth flesh of the abyss itself, the Tanari seeded from a much more fertile soil, the mortal spirit. As countless mortals lived, sinned and died, their wicked souls created an endless influx of raw material the abyss could shape. The process continues to this day, with often transitory Tanari breeds emerging from new depravities and mortal failings, only to go extinct without ever coming to the attention of material plane scribes who mistakenly consider themselves expert in all things demonic. Yet certain sins are ageless and do not vary across the gulfs of time. Tanari born of these sins form the bulk of demonic life on the abyss. Wrath begets the hateful Vrox, envy the power-hungry Glabrizus, gluttony the ravenous Nabassus, and so on. And so, with lust, the sin most potent for seeding demonic birth, the seventh deadliest sin that is inexorably intertwined with life, or to be more precise, with the apparatus for the creation of new life. And the children of mortal lust sifted through the ether of the abyss are perhaps the most scandalous demons of all. The succubi. Succubi prey on mortals physically and exploit their waking or dreamt desires. They relish corrupting virtuous souls and the pain an individual's downfall can cause. Once their targets are at their lowest, succubi slay their victims with their essence-draining kiss. Through fiendish rites, succubi can transform into incubi to manipulate their prey in dreams as well as the waking world. They can also change shape to torment their victims. These tempters can dominate humanoids, but they usually do so to reinforce their manipulations or defend themselves rather than controlling others outright. Beautiful and seductive, the succubi are the temptresses of mortals, whereas The glabrezu tempt men of power, the succubi choose men of passion and energy. Succubi appear, most often polymorphed into stunningly beautiful women with perfect figures and smooth, milky skin. They may also appear as any demi-human race. However, they do not often deal with these other beings. As humans, fiery nature makes them easier prey. Succubi look more tenaric in their true form, that of a beautiful woman with large wings and sinister glowing eyes. The temptresses of the lower planes are subtle and slow. They seduce mortals with their charms, ultimately killing them and taking their life forces to the abyss. They act independently of Tanari or devilish societies, as they work of their own volition and ultimately answer to no one. The greater and truer demons of their race seem content with this situation. It could be argued that the destruction of mortals leads directly to power gained in the abyss. With this, the succubi aid the eternal war effort of the Blood War, and therefore are tolerated. Before I tell you this next tale, this one involving secrets, silk, and the kind of yearning that eats through armor like acid, I must confess something. Not an apology, gods forbid, but a recognition, a mood, a simple taste, a reading from my Demonomicon. Desire is the moment of admittance to the hunger that lives beneath the day. Succubi focus in on the desire arrested by the denial that daylight demands. At night, they capture our yearning, targeting the divine discontent with what is and a longing for what isn't. Like a comet's tail at our fingertips to grasp, the thing we long for so deeply. A hand, a kiss, an embrace, to be carried to someplace else. The orchestra of the humanoid's ache. A pull to the place where our humiliations become glories and fantasies become actualities. A promise of momentary escape, stemming from a deeper, darker, unspoken source. This is the signature scent of succubi, and it is why I collect their stories with such delight. Let us speak plainly, shall we? There are lies that hide beneath lace and honeyed lips. Lies that slip into dreams, curl against your skin in the night, and whisper your name in voices you should not recognize. These lies have wings and high heels, an exquisitely dangerous taste in perfume. Succubi and their brothers, the incubi, are not monsters in the way the ignorant peasants believe. They are invitations. Invitations to undo yourself, slowly, gorgeously, from the inside out. They inhabit the entire wretched breadth of the lower planes. Devils, demons, hags, rakshasas, even Yugoloths make use of them. Asmodeus adores them, of course. He finds them useful for pulling mortals one step closer to hell. Though, honestly, I suspect he's just bitter. He can't look as good in a corset. But Grazist? Oh, Grazist understands them. He doesn't use succubi, he keeps them. Advisors, consorts, dancers of politics, and skin alike. They don't just serve him, they crave him. He is the very model of what they offer. Temptation, incarnated before their very eyes. Naturally, I was intrigued. Mortals rarely see these fiends in their true form. They begin as whispers, ghosts against the veil. They press their lips to your dreams, whisper things your gods would condemn. It starts with longing, then the indulgence, then a disinterest through your guilt. First, they come in ethereal form, drifting through walls, shadows in the corner of your eye, a breath against your cheek as you sleep. They lurk by bedsides and tempt the dreaming into deeper waters. Taboos begin to melt. The forbidden within your mind becomes a question of timing, not morality. Once the dream has seeded, they step into flesh, shape-shifted forms plucked from your private reveries. They become your muse, your confidant, your hidden rendezvous, and soon they are the only one who understands you. Then comes the fall. Not a dramatic plunge, no. A slipping, bit by bit. No contracts, no soul-selling ceremonies. Just corruption. The 3 betrayals. Thought, word, and deeds. Betray what you believe. Betray what you say. Betray who you are. And when you have done all 3, your soul doesn't need to be claimed. You've handed it over willingly, kissed it goodbye, wrapped it in silk, and thanked your captor for the privilege. And the virtuous, oh, those are the sweetest. Grazist told me once, between kisses obviously, that the longer a corruption takes, the richer it becomes, the more perfect the fall. And Grazist adores perfection, and so do I. I've studied many a succubus, interviewed them, bribed them, hexed them when necessary. I find them endlessly fascinating, not just for what they do, but how they make mortals undo themselves, the lives they have created, and most of all, the values they hung onto so deeply. Most magic requires effort, rituals, incantations, but a succubus, she only needs you to want her. She only needs to know the ache you dare not name aloud. Your soul is her desire, and their currency within the abyss and 9 hells. One in particular lingered in my company for a time. Her name was Alira, Ali for short, though that name changed depending on the continent, the moon phase, and her mood. She told me stories that would make bards weep and archmages blush. I let her into my dreams once, just once, to see how she worked. She painted entire worlds with desire and peeled back pieces of me I thought too well guarded, delightful, terrifying. I banished her before she could finish, but not before I thanked her, of course. I'm not ungrateful. Let's take a chapter from my Demonomicon. A longing, the pull of the succubus. Do you ever dream of someone who has never had a name? Someone whose face you can never quite recall when you wake, but whose presence clings to your skin like a perfume. That might not be a dream. That might be a creature of desire, whispering longing and passions into your ear. Darling, let me tell you a story from chapter 15. This chapter is particularly tasteful. The pages still smell of her scent, of betrayal, and very poor judgment wrapped in a Shadowvar's embrace. Let us start with a succubus devil, with cheekbones sharp enough to wound any humanoid, and a mind as sly as any diplomat in Asmodeus's layers. She wasn't content with merely tempting mortals into sin. She wanted to orchestrate nations into seduction, to make entire cities moan and break beneath her whispered suggestions. And where better to do that than in Neverwinter, the city of very skilled hands. Neverwinter, a city that could never decide whether to burn or rebuild. A place clawing its way out of a cataclysm full of wounded pride and desperate ambition. Frankly, I admired the aesthetic. Now, Arunica didn't storm in, fangs bared. That would have been so demure. No, she slipped through cracks, played devils and demons and dark sorcerers like strings on her harp. At first, in 1463 DR, a year charmingly titled The Year of the Reborn Hero, she backed Herzgo Allegni, a Shadowvar, full of gloom, gravitas, and a blade that fed on souls. He was ambitious, dangerous, and just self-obsessed enough to be a lovely pawn. She chose him not out of love, gods no, but because he looked like her winning bet. A tall, shadowy warlord with delusions of godhood. Please, that's every third date I've ever had. Don't tell Grazist. Her plan was delectable. Weaken Thay and the Shadowvar by turning them against one another, as if Thay needed another reason to start a war. And when they were bloodied, broken, and oh so vulnerable, she'd let the abolithic sovereignty slip in like a serpent through a slit in the curtain. Madness from the deep, dreams carved into bone, the usual fare. And if you have ever met an aboleth, well, just imagine a giant squid that preys on corrupting your mind. But then something unexpected happened. Silora, Salm, Thay's dark little darling, was defeated by an infamous legend, a handsome drow. You may have heard of him. One Dritz do Erden, yes, that Dritz, and Dahlia Sinfel, who at the time was very fashionably angry and extremely good with a staff. And because of their competence, well, they was now taken off the chessboard with a flick. Arunica adapted, like all the best predators do. She sensed the tide turning. Alenni, the poor fool, was about to be overrun by people with actual heroism and none of the vanity to match. So did she help him? Did she stay loyal to her sullen, sharp-jawed general? Of course not. Don't be ridiculous. That sort of story only happens within children's fairy tales. She vanished. She slipped into shadows and whispers, started asking questions about Dritz, consulting old abyssal contacts and crawling back channels of influence. Alegni fell to Dritz, Dahlia, and that deliciously dangerous Artemis Entreri. It was swift, brutal, tragic, like a sonnet sung with a dagger. And Arunica, is she still moving the pieces, still plotting? Well, of course, a succubi can't put down the chance of that delicious little sin creeping into a mortal's mind. She tried putting it down, but some creatures can't change their stripes. Of course, the matter of desire came back to haunt her. You see, she cared, not enough to die for him, but enough to fall for him. Not the kind of fall that ends in flames, the quiet kind, the slow, pathetic one where you begin to wonder of your future. Brother Anthus, filled with righteousness and probably very little imagination, ended her for it. Killed her because she'd loved what she shouldn't, because she'd made the fatal mistake of desiring a pawn. Now, I never met her personally, but I have read the lingering scent of her in the weave. She was the kind of woman who laughed while lighting the match, who kissed the mouth of ruin and then smiled when it bit back. We could have been friends, or rivals, or both. She reminds me of someone. But unlike her, I never fall for the pawn. I go straight for the king. Grazis taught me that. Or maybe I taught it to him. Or was it Mordenkainen? In the end, Arunica was not defeated by holy fire or a superior force. She was undone by that oldest of enemies, her own heart. Tragic? Yes. Avoidable? Certainly. Fashionable? Absolutely. Desire, like most dangerous things, is beautiful. And like most beautiful things, it lies. You think you're chasing what you want. But desire isn't about the object. It never is. It's about the ache, the exquisite tension, the absence, the way your fingers twitch at night when you think no one's watching, the memory of warmth long since gone, the imagined touch that never quite arrives. Succubus understand this better than anyone. They don't give you what you crave. No, they give you the space between the craving and the fulfillment. They make the distance feel divine. They make the ache holy, radiant. And once you worship at that altar, you never leave it quite the same. I have seen paladins fall for a whisper, archmages reduced to scribbling verses about eyes they can't forget. And I've seen myself, once or twice, slipping toward a gaze I should have walked away from. Grazist, if you're reading this, don't get smug. Desire is a spell, the most ancient one, cast with a glance, a breath, a promise never meant to be kept. And if I have learnt anything, you don't conquer your desires, you drown in them, willingly. And so, let this be the final lesson of this chapter, a quote from my own Demonomicon. Penned on a night, I almost wrote to someone I shouldn't have. Desire. Is it the wanting, or the wanting of someone or something? The pain of not being enough. or the pain of being the one to let it all slip away? Is it the connection and contemplation of both the want and the wanted, or is it all too complicated to really have any control over in the end? If you find the answer, don't tell me. Some spells are better left unfinished.